Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Mad Mouth. Mark Maraday won't be here with us tonight because he's off to Aruba. Have a good trip to Aruba. Mark, I got news for you. I've been there, beautiful place. Enjoy the family. We're going to put you to work really hard next week for taking the time off. With that said, let's go over the topics, then we'll go over the people, our crew tonight. Talk about the Chicago White Sox 20-game losing streak. How do you not? Trade line activity. Every crew member is going to talk about a particular team. Mike Trout, well, we have to talk about him for all the wrong reasons. Miami Marlins payroll is always a topic of conversation, and of course the Milwaukee Brewers. With that said, we'll go to my crew here. George Eichhorn was on Fire Up Florida earlier. He's doing double duty tonight. And welcome
Good
back
to be
for
on,
round
Scott.
two. All right.
Round two, yes.
And Eric Katz, everybody favorite person, including Joshua Dorr. Good evening, Eric Katz. How was your weekend? Oh, that's one of the nicer comments out of him. Better enjoy that.
It was good. It was pretty good, Josh. Thanks for asking, sir.
Okay, and we have Candy Ebling.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me, Scott.
You're welcome. And last but not least, the man from Texas, where they do everything big, Ashton Nix.
What's going on, guys?
Us, man. All right, so Joshua Dorr, this one's an easy one for you, Eric. Did you enjoy your calamari last week?
I did. I truly did. Thank you.
Yeah, I had that the night before. I really liked it as well. So with that said, let's go ahead and get to baseball. And if you have any more food suggestions, Josh, wait till later when I'm getting close to bed so I don't have to think about it. All right. And get hungry eating too late. All right. Well, unfortunately, the top story here is the Chicago White Sox are the first team since the 1988 Baltimore Orioles and the seventh in MLB history to lose 20 games in a row. Ashton Nix, how is that even possible? Although it's happened 6 other times.
Yeah, it poorly managed team. I mean that's what it is. I mean, you think it happens to teams like the A's, but I guess playing Moneyball excludes them from that. But it's just one of the unfortunate teams that we're going to see. It was the Orioles, more recently, not too long ago, but they lose a couple more, and it already is an all-time bad team and a terrible losing streak. But I mean, a couple of more, they go in baseball lore as pretty much the worst team in baseball. And I know they're on track to lose the most games. I think it's the most games in the modern era. I can't remember the team. There's a team in the 1800s that will have lost a lot more games than them, but right now on pace to lose like 124 games. So that'd be the worst team in the modern era.
Well, speaking of what you just said, anyways, they play the Oakland A's tonight. So, the Oakland A's and the White Sox, I think the Oakland A's would like to go out there and add to this streak. So with that, what do you think, George?
Well, yeah, I mean, I lived through that terrible stretch when Detroit had Alan Trammell as their manager. Felt so bad for him, of course, a Hall of Fame shortstop, and he didn't have a clue on how to run the Tigers. And I feel for the White Sox fans. I mean, there's some good fans there. It's been pretty bleak, though, obviously, this year and in previous years. And the team that Ashton that you're referring to, goes back to the 1889 Louisville Colonels, and they lost 26 in a row. And the Philadelphia Phillies in the modern era, the 1961 Phillies, lost 23 in a row. So, boy, you're talking about some bad history, man. And Chicago is just really getting bit hard this year. I mean, the Cubs, people were expecting more out of them, but the White Sox are, man, that's crazy badness. That is really crazy. And that's something you don't just shake off. When you've got a streak going like this, trust me, it is bad news. And Bill Veeck is turning over in his grave. Let me tell you right now, he had some bad teams too, but this team is really bad.
Eric?
Oh boy, I remember growing up in the Chicago area. I remember going to going to White Sox games, growing up with my dad, and also going with my brothers. We'd put together some money to take the train in because we literally had no money at the time, and the Cubs were more expensive. But man, this is probably the worst team in Major League Baseball history. If you can put them next to the Mets, they were an expansion franchise. So you had some guys who were either over the hill, younger players, guys who probably wouldn't even be playing baseball had it not been for that team. But this team is over 124 years old, and you got this mess. We all knew they were going to be bad. Like, just looking at them on paper, but we didn't expect them to be this bad. The only bright light about this team has been Garrett Crochet. Even that's dimmed a little bit for his outrageous contract extension demand during the trade deadline. But man, this team is bad. I mean, they're going up against Oakland, which gives them an opportunity. But man, Southsiders anticipated this being a long year. I don't think anybody anticipated it being this long of a year.
Andy?
The White Sox have been around since 1901. Mm-hmm. Their franchise record for losses is 106, which they could eclipse before Labor Day. Did you hear that? They could eclipse that before Labor Day. Wow. It's been a long way down from the rebuild that was supposed to bring multiple championships. 2 years after the Sox won 93 games in the AL Central, they hit what we thought was rock bottom. That was last year when they lost 101 games. And now look at them. And it's worse. It's not. They said they're 60 games under 500. 60 games under 500. It's just crazy. To think that, and they don't have that bad of a payroll, but to think that they're that bad, it's sad. It's sad. I can remember back in the day when years ago we didn't go down. I lived in Milwaukee, so we didn't go down to Chicago very often. But there was a year that the Brewers started out and they were hot. And they were hot. Mm-hmm. And they won 13 games straight. And then they kept going. And unfortunately, the White Sox were the team that beat them finally to start the season when they had their streak. Because we were there. But I'm shocked. I really am surprised that they're this bad. I thought, to be honest with you, the Marlins were doing very good, but man, they got a lot over the Chicago White Sox right now.
Well, let's not lose sight of the fact that a little while ago, the White Sox and the Marlins played a few games down here. So, and now all of a sudden the White Sox are in the headlines for all the wrong reason. I remember in 1975 when the Detroit Tigers endured a 19-game losing streak. And the guy that stopped that streak is a guy by the name of Ray Bear. There's a little trivia question. So with that said, back to the comments. D-Lowe's, good evening, baseball brethren, Stitch sisters, and diamond dudes alike. I've never heard that before. Good stuff, D-Lowe's. But the reality of the situation is this, the Tigers beat up on the White Sox earlier in the year, and that was early, and we all thought the Tigers would doing gangbusters. Who would have ever thought the White Sox would be this bad? And yes, whoever said Bill Veeck would be turning over his grave, truer words couldn't be spoken.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, we're going to talk about the Major League Baseball trade deadline, but what I'm going to do tonight, excuse me, is we're going to talk about assign individual teams to each of the crew members. Mark Mayer and I will have a chance to talk about the Pirates next week when he comes back. Excuse me. But actually, why don't you talk about the Texas Rangers? They thought that they could make a few trades at the deadline to go one way, but it looks like they're headed backwards. Explain to me what's going on in Texas, Ashton.
Yeah, well, they were sitting on the fence for a while trying to decide should they be buyers or sellers or something in between because they had quite a few expiring contracts. For a while, they were a team that if they would sell, it'd be kind of an exciting trade deadline around Major League Baseball, but they kind of stayed put. They did get Carson Kelly from Detroit, which y'all know a lot about. Just trade a couple of prospects for him. Gives them depth at catcher behind Jonah Heim, good catching experience. and he was adding a good bat, and he has the ability to hit home runs. So a good player that, could help them in the future, not just this year alone. We were hoping to get maybe an outfielder who could hit. I guess just the right deal wasn't aligned for it. I think it was a pretty good trade deadline for them, considering, they'd gone on a losing streak right before. I'm glad they didn't sell. I mean, I think they could have gotten rid of an Evaldi, which is an expiring contract. Outside of them re-signing him, I don't know that would have been. It's a smart thing to keep him, but they didn't trade away their future. They didn't trade it away just to try to push for a World Series run this year, which is just every day that passes is getting further and further out of our mind. I'm just thinking, like, man, just kind of stay in the hunt, just so. I don't know that they'll make the playoffs this year, but you can have something to look positively to next year for the front office to do something, thinking, hey, maybe we're only a couple of pieces away. And it's just making last year's World Series run look more like a fluke than it ever has.
Yeah, well, one thing they do have going for them in Texas, best manager in baseball, Bruce Bochy. So,
yeah.
No, yeah, you can't go wrong there. All
And
right,
so that's probably a reason they didn't trade away a lot, because if you do that, then Bochy may not stay around for another year if they're not going after a World Series.
Okay, D-Lowe's, Ashton, hit us with something on that cool soundboard that you have in the background.
I don't know if you can hear this or not. Applause? I don't know if y'all can hear that or not.
Yeah, I think we have one of those soundboards too, don't we, Candy? Pretty sure. Okay,
Yeah.
Hello. Okay, did anyone sell stocks today? I don't know. Where does that apply to what we're talking about, Turbojet? Okay, all right. I said drones. All right. Well, Turbojet once in a while takes a turbo and he jets out of reality once in a while. And that time he got out of reality. All right. With that said, Eric, you get to talk about the New York Yankees.
I mean, at first I was like not loving the Jazz Chisholm move, but I understand why they did it. I mean, so far he's been very impressive against the Philadelphia Phillies. Somehow he morphed into Reggie Jackson, hitting that big home run. He's, despite never playing third base, he's looking pretty good out there. I mean, of course, he's going to have his moments out there where he's learning the position, but so far I can't really complain about him. Mark Leiter Jr., oh baby, what a strikeout talent, where they've already thrown him into the mix of being in some high leverage innings, and he's come through for him. I mean, I can't complain about him. You could probably make the argument he could probably be a closer if you really wanted him to be. I can't complain there. I mean, I would have liked to see them add maybe a starting pitcher. I mean, I know they were in the mix for Flaherty, but they got a little concerned about a back issue he had, which I think part of that goes back to where they made the deal for Frankie Montas, and Frankie Montas ended up being an injured mess, which I can understand why they went a little gun shy there. But overall, though, I can't say I'm complaining. I mean, they got this De Los Santos guy from San Diego, so you bolster your bullpen with a couple of strikeout arms. But I think, overall, though, I'm all right with what they did. I mean, granted, Yankee fans are there's a very stark divide between what front office executives think about Brian Cashman and what Yankees fans think about Brian Cashman. But overall, though, I don't think I'd probably give him a B for that. I think he didn't do too bad.
Well, the only thing I'll say about Jazz Chisholm is New York fans will love him if they don't already. They will. He's a very charismatic player, and when you can bat behind Aaron Judge instead of being moved around in the Marlins lineup, Jazz Chisholm, will the real Jazz Chisholm stand up? He will in New York City, and it'll be a great thing. All right, Turbojet, I'm on it. All right, Eric, what's your take of this question? Do you think Japan's economy and the war in the Middle East will affect baseball in the coming months?
I don't know how those two things I don't know how those two things relate to one another. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but you can respond if you want to.
CNN.
Any way or as much or as little as you want to.
That's like mixing CNN with ESPN. I mean, it's not really a mix there.
Okay, that's fair enough. Okay, Candy, you get the Milwaukee Brewers.
I'm going to be honest. I was kind of head scratching some of the moves that they made because knowing that Christian Yelich he's had back issues for years. And knowing that he might need surgery, and I know they're going to try and rehab and stuff like that, I was kind of surprised that we didn't really go out there and try and find somebody to help our offense, because in the month of July, the Brewers bats have been, how should I put it? Not as, I mean, they're hitting 248, and they were hitting 259, 260 before. And then we have some trading. We traded for pitcher Frankie Montas for one of our outfielders. Okay, so wait a minute. Christian Yelich is going to go on the DL or is not going to be in the lineup as much. And when everybody says, "Oh, well, he doesn't have to play the outfield," but we need his bat, and if it's his back, he can't torque his back when he's batting. So we really needed a good bat, and yet we went out and got pitchers, and we kind of switched pitchers, and I was kind of baffled. I'll be honest with you. I would have expected more, since we're still up 5 games in the division, but I was surprised we didn't do more and get different players. But so we'll see if Montas he's expected to make his first start. And I don't know. We'll just see how he does for the Brewers. And I can only hope that they can get back to their winning ways, because they've lost a lot of series in July. Like most of them, they lost the series to the Marlins. They lost to the Nationals. They haven't been winning series. And if you don't win series, you're not going to progress.
Okay. All right. Joshua Jordan has another question for you, Eric. More up your alley. If there is one change MLB can make to make the game actually exciting to watch, what can they do? In my opinion, baseball is so hard to watch. Okay. I think that's a fair question.
I mean, baseball is very much, I want to describe, kind of like a cup of tea. You either like it or you don't, and some people, some people will watch it. I think personally, the game's in a great place right now, because, as much as the pitch clock, I wasn't really loving at first, but now it's, we still get the constant action. It makes going to the ballpark during the week a lot easier. And instead of just, counting on the fact that the game's going to last like 4 or 5 hours. I mean, sure, you're going to get a 3-hour game here and there, that'll happen. But for the most part, though, you're out of the ballpark within a couple hours or during the week, and then you get home at a relatively decent hour.
Okay, well, Turbo Jetum, okay, we'll go to his comment. I would say maybe get some cheerleader or something. Well, now you got a dog with his tongue out, because I don't think that's very realistic. You have to be to the 9-9, Joshua 9 Bears and 9 Grizzlies? Is that what it is? And 9 innings. I've never heard that, but all right. It's in good taste. Baseball is on the decline. As far as professional sports go, that is final. All right. Well, Joshua Doerr's words are always that is final. All right. But that's good, though, when it comes to my book reviews. I'll leave it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt there. All right. On to George Eichhorn with the Detroit Tigers.
Oh, boy. Well, obviously a selling mode by Scott Harris and GM. And the front office GM and the scouts all were ready to deal. And they did deal right at the last minute, really, before the deadline. Jack Flaherty went to the Dodgers. And, they got a 21-year-old prospect, Lorenzo. He's having a decent year this year, but he's only in single-A ball in Midland. And then they got a catcher who I never heard of before, but Trey Sweeney is the infielder. I'm sorry. And Lorenzo is the catcher. So that's what they got in exchange for Jack Flaherty. Hated to see Jack leave, obviously, because sub 3.00 ERA, pitching very well this year. But again, Detroit's in a situation where they continue to rebuild. They're not going to be able to hang on to these guys that they trade for in all likelihood. They get them for 1 year rentals, whatever you want to call them. There were other trades too, as well. Obviously, you mentioned one earlier, Ashton, with the catcher going down to Texas. He's a good guy. He had a good year so far in Detroit, so you're going to like him. He's going to be Kelly is a good guy. Silva, 21, is who they got in exchange for Mark Canha, and Canha went to the Giants. He's not had a good year in Detroit, basically, just been pretty much average hitting wise. But Silva is got some potential. Again, Double-A Richmond, 21 years old only. The Tigers hope that he can bring them something in the next few years. So Silva for Canha. Chafin, again, Andrew Chafin was here for the second time in Detroit, and now he's back with the Rangers in this trade. They picked up Lee, 25 years old. Again, it remains to be seen. He's had some decent years so far as a young kid in the minor leagues, as far as his earned average and his strikeout ratio. So they're hoping that Lee can do something for Detroit in exchange. And then you've got who's the other one? Montalvo. Joseph Montalvo is a right-hander they picked up in exchange, and Lee in exchange for Chafin. And so, I mean, all in all, I think that the Tigers tried to get as best they could, but the jury is definitely still out. They didn't pull a blockbuster, which would have been involved, Tarek Skubal. They resisted, and actually Scott Harris went on with the media and says that he wasn't anywhere close to making a deal to send Skubal to say the Yankees or Dodgers or somebody like that. So they weren't going to do that for nothing but a heist. They would have needed a lot in return. So, again, throwing in the towel. The team has not played well lately. They had a little streak. They've been a very streaky team, the Tigers. So we'll see what happens. They're obviously in a bad situation now. The only one saving the Tigers in this division is obviously the White Sox. And but basically it's a bunch of prospects, and what can I say, guys? And the jury is still out.
All right. Well, first of all, had Tarek Skubal been dealt, AJ Hinch would have resigned at the end of the year. I can tell you that right now. That no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, well, let's talk about the Marlins. Oh, this is going to be interesting. I have a lot to talk about with these guys. First of all, thanks to my colleague or go-to guy in Miami, Luis Durante Jr. was a big help. When we were at Miller Park, I'll always call it Miller Park. Okay, Luis Durante Jr.'s enabled me to get an interview with the Marlins reliever by the name of Brian Hoeing. What do you think happens after that? 48 hours later, he's traded to the San Diego Padres. So Hoeing goes from a Hoeing to a Boeing to go to San Diego. All right, Josh Bell. The last game as a Marlin was last Sunday, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think happens? He's shipped to Arizona for cash consideration. Yeah, I guess the Marlins could use a little bit of that. As if that wasn't enough, I was joking around with Durante Jr. How about getting me AJ Puck? What do you think happens? He gets traded too. Oh, but we're not done with AJ Puck. We'll go ahead and talk about Trevor Rogers. And I have all these text messages with Lewis on my phone. Guess what? Trevor Rogers gets shipped. So I want three guys, and they all got traded. And meanwhile, when I see Lewis later on, we'll probably have the biggest laugh on the planet. But mind you, when we're at the Sunday game, Ryan Braun is going into the what? Is it the Wall of Fame there, Candy? Is that what they call it?
Yes.
And then what do you think happens that day? A guy by the name of Xavier Edwards hits for the cycle. So think about it. We saw an awful lot of ball. We had Braun, cycle, and my list of guys get dwindled because of the trade line. And for those of you that want to see the Brian Hoeing interview, go to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, and you'll enjoy it. Now, I'm going to try to revisit that this weekend if I can. When the Padres are in town, we'll see what happens. And speaking of which, that Tanner Scott got traded there. So the reality is Miami Marlins are selling and obviously loading up on prospects. We'll see what happens down the road. I think they could have won with the 2025 team because they had a lot of players under club control, but that's not how these Marlins are doing business. They've had like 4 fire sales, and this was the latest one out of 4, especially coming off a playoff or a postseason appearance. So, with that said, let's talk about the injury issues of Mike Trout, who's out for the rest of the season, 2024. It's the second time he's had a torn meniscus problem. He's had his injury history in games that are played. He played 29 this year, 2023 broken hamate, 82 he played in 2022 with back inflammation, and he played 119 in 2021 with a calf strain, and he played 36. So the reality is Mike Trout takes a beating out there, and you always wonder about those long-term contracts that they bite you. And unfortunately, Ashton, for Trout, things haven't gotten a lot easier. I give Ron Washington a lot of credit for what he's had to work with, despite all the injuries. But, you're in that division. Ashton, what are your thoughts about that?
It's just a shame because Mike Trout had been touted as, this generation's, compared him to Babe Ruth, that was going to be something we had to look forward to. And he put numbers up until he started all the injuries, and every injury you just listed off was a major injury, but they're all different. It's not like he's dealing with this nagging thing. This is just his issue. After a while, you just have to say he's just going to be injured all the time. And, whether it's the grind of the season or maybe he just has one of those older type bodies that cannot stick it out for a full season anymore. It's just going to be an issue now. And I don't know if we'll ever see the same Mike Trout. I don't necessarily think he's going to retire or anything because he's always injured now, but even if he can stay healthy for a good chunk of the season, I don't think we're going to see him put up the same kind of numbers. But I think for all intents and purposes is his career's pretty much over of what we've thought it was going to be. He's not going to be a superstar anymore. He just can't stay healthy. And even when he is, he's not doing a whole lot anymore.
Well, think about it. If he had played in the National League prior, there's no DH, but now the DH is universal is really what it is. So,
yeah.
That was the only place you could put him. And right now you can't even get him on the field. George?
Yeah, I know that, we had talked on an earlier show, but yeah, it's really sad. Yeah, for all the same reasons that Ashton mentioned. Here's a guy that's a superstar. So much was expected of him. You remember when they were upset because he wasn't connecting as well. The powers that be in the Major League Baseball office didn't feel perhaps he was connecting enough with the fans. And, they wanted to really push him into that superstardom status, which I could understand. But now, oh, gosh, the injury bug has reared its ugly head, as the saying goes. And this guy is never going to be the same. You look back at that year when he had 45 home runs. Another year he had 41. He had 40, I believe, another year. Just incredible statistics he was putting up. But the problem, again, was the fact that they depended on him so much. They didn't have the supporting cast that they needed. And the LA Angels have been one of the biggest disappointments, I think, in baseball in the last 15, 20 years. This is a situation that they just really botched it up. They did not get him the support he needed. Not to say he would still be healthy today. I'm just saying that, had he had enough support around him in that batting order, there could have been a little less pressure on. But I know that Mike Trout goes, as we know, 100%, 110%, as the saying goes, in everything he does. Tiger's got a fella in the outfield named Riley Green that gets that has that mentality, but unfortunately gets hurt. It seems like every season. I'm comparing apples to oranges because obviously Mike Trout's been around a long time, more than Riley Green. But this being said, yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame for baseball, and it's sad for Angels fans because I agree. He's not going to be the player anymore that they had hoped for.
Candy.
I mean, I feel bad for him, but to give you guys an idea, he has not played since April 29th because of a torn left meniscus, has torn the meniscus again, and will miss the rest of 2024. He only played 29 games before the initial injury in April. His 10 home runs led MLB on the day he was placed on the injured list. A variety of injuries limited Trout to only 266 of 648 possible games from 2021 to 2024, or 41%. That includes 41 games after the All-Star break in those 4 seasons combined. Trout does not have one chronic injury, like you said, that doesn't keep popping up. He's going to turn 33 next week, and this is year 6 of the 12-year, $426.5 million extension he signed March 2019. The Angels still owe him $35.45 million per year from 2025 to 2030, or $212.7 million. To date, that contract brought the Angels an MVP winning season in 2019, a top 5 finish in the MVP voting in 2020, and a bunch of injuries from 21 to 24. They owe him a lot of money. He was a great player, and we've seen this as players get into their 30s, they have more injury problems. They have more. It takes longer, and most of us can attest to this. As you age, once you get injured, it takes you longer to recover from injuries. So giving him that kind of contract for that long, kudos to him, because let's face it, he's getting paid. But I feel bad for him because I know how bad he feels, because he would rather be on the field than being injured. And I know that for a fact. He's a great guy. I just feel bad for him, but I also sit here and think all these long-term contracts that people have been throwing out, no matter what league we're talking about, really need to be reconsidered.
Okay, Marla.
You're going to be paying for a guy that's not playing.
We'll go to Eric and then a station break after I get these 2 questions. So let me go ahead, since these questions are designed for Eric anyway, so I'll have a little bit of fun with them. Eric, what's for dinner, mate? Okay.
Spaghetti.
Okay, there you go. Eric, did Scott put you into Mountain Dews?
No, I've been having them for years, probably since I was 12, and I used to have them in the morning to wake up.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we try to go out there now. Eric, you can talk about Mike Trout.
Major League Baseball in its history has a lot of careers that are up there with to have the question "what if" next to it. And if you wanted to rank them all out, I'd probably say Mike Trout's is probably the number one what if ever. Unfortunately, though, Major League Baseball wanted him to be that face of the league, kind of after some certain guys kind of retired, like Albert Pujols, even Miguel Cabrera, kind of like those face guys kind of retire. But I don't think Mike Trout really ever wanted that. I think Mike Trout wanted to go out there and play baseball. That's all he wanted to do. And that's why he kind of hid out in LA. That's why he decided to sign the extension in LA and kind of hide out there, which if you think about it, later on when ESPN gets to it, they'll probably put a 30 for 30 out on Mike Trout and probably the Angels in general on how they could have 2 MVPs and go nowhere. I think, it's unfortunate though, because he was truly top 3 talent in the league. I think, nowadays, guys like Ohtani and Aaron Judge have kind of got that spotlight now of face of the league. But Trout was that guy for a window of time. I mean, I think he's going to be the type of player where if you wanted to see him play, when kids or grandkids ask you later in life, it's going to be one of those you just had to be there. I mean, but he unfortunately is going to be the biggest what if in baseball history.
Okay. All right, I'm no station break with Candy.
You are looking at South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Division, which published a book last year, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. It is written by none other than Scott Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. And George wrote the foreword for the book as well. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google, Apple Books, and Kindle. Get your copy today. Go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find the writings of Scott and George. You can find my pictures. You can also find a link to purchase the book or a link to purchase any kind of South Florida Tribune merchandise, whether you need a hat, like George has got a hat on, or a sweatshirt or t-shirt. You got it. Go get it. If you like to listen to podcasts, you can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, you name it, Castbox, Deezer, wherever. Go to our website, go to subscribe. If you see that red subscribe button in the lower right corner, that means you haven't subscribed to us. Please do so. Share us. Tell all your friends. Preceding this episode tonight was Fire Up Florida, which actually talked about hockey. So if you like hockey, go check it out. On Tuesday nights, we talk football inside the pigskin. Wednesday and Thursday nights, you never know what we're talking about. We've talked cornhole, hot dog eating contest, NFL, NBA, Olympics. Go check us out, and to be determined what we will be talking about this week. So, Scott, back to you.
All right, so Turbo Jetta wants to go ahead. He says that, Eric, you are a big spaghetti guy, I see. All right, he can mean it any way he wants. I think spaghetti is pretty good. I haven't had it in a while, but I still like it. And when Candy makes those noodles around the house, it's pretty good. All right, let's talk about two teams that once faced each other in the World Series, but what a long time ago that was, it seems. The Miami Marlins have a payroll of $14.7 million, and the Yankees are at $255 million. And that isn't bad enough. The Marlins have a payroll, as I mentioned, 14.7, and Aaron Judge's salary of $40 million. Ashton, what do you think of those numbers? We know 14.7 or 147 would be a good three-digit number, but compare both of those, Ashton. 14.7 versus 255 and 14.7 versus Aaron Judge, who's got 40 million. Strange, isn't it?
The Yankees have always had big payrolls, and the Marlins usually don't. The couple of times they've won the World Series, they've went out and bought a lot of players. To be fair, though, I mean, since the Yankees repeated in the late 90s, early 2000s, both the Yankees and Marlins have won World Series out of it. So the Yankees just continue to spend, and they'll make it to the playoffs. They'll make it to the World Series occasionally, and then they'll win. They've won one in the last 25 years. The Marlins don't, and that's they're for whatever reason they're just their ownership group. They'll go out, spend a lot, and win a World Series, have success, and then sell it off and go back into a rebuilding period, and that's just kind of what they're known for.
Amazingly enough, when you compare and contrast these two franchises, we talked about Jazz Chisholm earlier, but the Marlins pawned off Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees as well. And, Giancarlo Stanton, that may not be the worst decision on the planet because he hasn't been quite durable in New York either. I think the Marlins got some of his better years out of him. So if you're looking for a salary dump in New York with the Yankees, the Marlins have been known to send a few players to the Bronx. All right, with that said, Mr. Bronx himself, Eric, what are your thoughts about it?
The Marlins are probably the sorriest franchise in baseball. It seems like every time they have something going, every time they they got to win. I mean, aside from the 2012 disaster when they opened up Marlins Park, every time you think they got something going where they might have something, they blow it up. That's just been their MO. It's been that way. It's been that way for years. It happened in '97 when they won the first World Series ring after they bought, and then they did it again despite that team being mostly homegrown. And then they did it again in 2012 when although if you look back on it, those were actually good baseball trades in 2012. I mean, bad pub trades, but very good baseball trades because Josh Johnson's arm fell off when he got to Toronto. But that's just been their MO. Every time they think they have something going, when it starts to get a little expensive because you got to pay to win, they always blow it up. I mean, that's why nobody wants to see them despite a new ballpark, and that's why it's part of the reason too why baseball has never been able to take off in Florida as a whole.
Okay, George.
Yeah, I really don't have too much to add. I mean, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I mean, Eric, you nailed it. I mean, they won the championship with Jim Leyland and Dave Dombrowski way back in 1997, I believe it was. And then, like you said, then they blow up the team. So what do? Was it 2003 under Jack McKeon? They won it again. They won the World Series. And, they've had some decent years in between those years or a couple of years after that, but they just don't seem to get the momentum nor want to spend the money necessary in most instances to keep the momentum going and to try to rebuild their roster into a potential World Series type of roster. But it's a very peculiar way they go about business, and they've had some of the worst finishes in baseball history. I mean, yeah, I'm glad fans down there should be happy they got 2 world championships, but boy, oh boy, the time before that, the time in between that, and the time now is just challenging and gut-wrenching if you're a Marlins fan and you want to stay interested in the team. And this sell-off, and all these things, like you mentioned, Scott, about the moves they made, during the trading deadline time, and guys that left, and Chisholm is one of them. I mean, it's just a sad situation. Yankees, on the other hand, always seem to want to spend the money, but for some reason they can't get the right amount of talent. And whether it's Boone, whether it's, any of the coaches or the previous managers they've had, they have just been in a rut in trying to get to the promised land, the World Series again. The Yankees are just, again, as we know, open up maybe not as much as George Steinbrenner, but they open up the pocketbooks a lot. And they've got some great players. I mean, Judge is unbelievable. And they've had some great players on that Yankee team. And it is an interesting comparison between the two franchises. But the Yankees, of course, are a lot closer than the Marlins are to winning it all. So we'll see what happens this September and October in New York. But Miami has a bad situation.
Well, I mean, Candy observes the Marlins from a perspective that nobody else does, the photo well. So, so if anybody knows what's going on down in the dugout, it's Candy. What's your take about comparing these two? Except that when the Yankees draw and they come down here, the Marlins' biggest weekend of attendance is over 100,000. But go ahead, Candy. Compare and contrast.
You want to keep stealing my thunder or what?
No, I'm done.
Okay. So to give you an idea, the Marlins drew 9,460 today against the Cincinnati Reds. And yes, the Cincinnati Reds aren't anything to brag about, but they're both in 5th place in their respective divisions. So it was a pretty even matchup, or was it? The Yankees are a historic franchise. People want to play for historic franchises. Marlins. We live in a state where we don't pay any state income tax, but yet do you hear of people wanting to come to play for the Miami Marlins? Why? Ownership? Where the stadium is located in a really bad neighborhood. There's not many fans going to Marlins games, so why would you want to play for a franchise that draws less in a bad neighborhood? Obviously, the ownership doesn't want to pay for players. What would entice you? How many big name players have you seen come to the Marlins and stay with the Marlins? There aren't very many of those names that you can rattle off the top of your head. But yet, how many Yankee players can you rattle off the top of your head? All of those factors factor in. Now, yes, I am in the photo well. And what I will tell you is it is interesting to see the different dynamics of some of the teams and how the players interact with each other. And are they rooting for each other? Are they not? Or are they just having side conversations in the dugouts? Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I think a team that really gels together and roots for each other and encourages each other has more success. And I haven't seen that a lot with the Marlins. Is it because of, and the other thing is one of the things that factors in, and we've seen this lately, is, let's face it, because we're not making the Marlins aren't doing the payrolls, the players that they get that are veterans are not that good because they're not paying for the good players. So you have the inconsistency of those players trying to mold and help these rookies. And that makes a big difference too, because what are the rookies seeing? And what kind of effort are you putting forth? What are you showing to these young rookies? Because there's a lot of young people on that Marlins bench and in the dugout. I think all of those things contribute. And let's face it, why wouldn't you? The Yankees are one of the most historic and well-known franchises. Why wouldn't you want to go play for a franchise like that?
Okay. Well, for whatever it's worth, Cincinnati 10, Miami 3. So, good evening tonight. That was the final score down at Lone Depot Park.
Yep.
Good evening, Kneecap Buddy. I want to see if Candy was going to mention it, so I didn't steal all of her thunder. All right. So, I'm not sure exactly what this is here, so I'm going to leave it alone. Okay. Some things you do leave alone, and this is one of them. Okay. All right, and we'll keep Candy at home with this one. We're going to let her start off with this one now. Can the Milwaukee Brewers overcome Christian Yelich's loss in their playoff quest? He might need season-ending back surgery per Ken Rosenthal. All right, Candy, why don't you start off with this?
The Milwaukee Brewers. They have this problem consistently the last couple of years. They have gotten off to a hot start, and then they slowly fizzle out for whatever reason. It might be that they don't have the depth of some of the teams as others. Let's face it, injury bug has always played a role, especially when you have, like, Christian Yelich is one of the biggest payrolls that we have. He's been consistently injured lately. The last couple of years, this back issue has hampered him for the last couple of years, and that hasn't helped because he was having one of his best years to start this year. So will the Brewers keep fizzling? I'll be honest with you, it completely is going to come down to if they're going to spark some offense and their pitching. Lately, Devin Williams is now back off the injured list, but he's just not the same yet. So I think it's going to take him some time. But we need consistent bats, and that's where I think we've been very spotty at best, and we need to win series. They need to find a way to scrap and win games and win the series instead of losing series. Taking one game out of 3 is not going to cut it.
All right, well, Eric, you're in Milwaukee. What's your take on the Brewers?
Yelich was an all-star this year. First time in a while, and he had been relatively healthy all year, but then his back gives out. He's starting to have a little bit of Don Mattingly in him, unfortunately. But the trade deadline for them kind of baffled me a little bit. I didn't like the deal. I didn't really like the. I know they tried to get Eric Fetty, but they got Frankie Montas, which to me, Frankie Montas has been for a while. Even though he's only 31, I still think he's been so injured that I didn't even like. And I don't think he's the same guy as he once was in Oakland. With Yelich though. I thought another left-handed bat would have been great. Just something to kind of plug the hole there. But this has been a recurring issue where I was saying it from the get-go that the Brewers should consider moving Yelich to first base. That way, you take him off his feet a little bit, and then you don't have to play him over there every day. And it's just this is just part of his game now, where he has got a bad back, and for some reason the Brewers just don't add the depth behind him to make it happen. I know they got the depth in the minor league system because it's like in the top 3 systems, I believe, in all of baseball with a bunch of top 100 prospects. But this has been a constant theme for them for a while now, and for some reason they just haven't got the message yet that Yelich should not be playing in the outfield. He doesn't have the back anymore. And maybe it's time to move over to first base or make him a full-time DH. That way you still have his bat. But the Brewers just haven't got the message yet. I don't know what it will take to get the message about Yelich and his back, but for some reason, these recurring issues it's just not working.
All right. So, Eric, if you want to answer this question, you can. If you don't, no comments. Do work in journalism. Okay. What time is dinner?
Why? What makes you curious about what time I eat dinner?
Exactly. That's why I said. Do you want to answer?
Should I be a little, Scott? Should I be a little worried? I mean, is there something they're curious about? Like, do they want to like break into my house or something?
You know what flamingo looks like here? It reminds me of a flaming onion. Is what he reminds me of. All right, we'll leave it at that.
That just sounds so callous and cruel.
Blooming onion. Blooming.
I'm actually trying to figure out what it is, but Motor City Spaghetti Night. Okay, Flamin'. I think you need to go to the Flamingo Hotel out in Las Vegas to go out there and get the answer to that question. I want you to send for Uber Eats. Oh, I guess that's what you are, Flamin'. Okay, good stuff. Onward we go. We're talking some, though he does have access to some of the bratwurst in the country out in Milwaukee. I will say that. So
I do.
They got it. So we'll leave it at that. I don't need food conversation at 9:51 when I'm about 30 minutes away from going to bed anyways. All right. With that said, all right, we talked to Eric. We talked to Candy. We'll turn it over to Ashton. Thank you, Candy. About the Brewers.
Yeah. As far as the back issues go, I mean, we know a couple of things about that for the Rangers with Evan Carter dealing with his back deals. Surgery or not, it's not something you take light. Even if he completely heals or has surgery and completely heals, you always worry that maybe 2-3 years down the road it's coming back, because back issues don't typically just start and then go away. As far as their run to the playoffs, I think they'll be okay. I mean, they have a pretty big lead in the Central. I know Pirates are kind of catching up with them. But once they get to the playoffs, that's going to be the issue. It was kind of disappointing for them not to make a move that would fix that, that issue in their lineup. Although, I mean, he is only on the 10-day DL, but I guess that's where most guys start until they're, they get moved up or they have surgery that ends their season. I guess the best thing the Brewers can hope for is they keep going, that he doesn't need surgery and that he's back and, able to contribute in the playoffs. But, that's glass half full type thinking. And, it's scary anytime you're talking about back issues, because Candy's right. Like, even if you just did like a Ohtani situation, like, okay, he's not pitching, he's just going to bat. Well, back injuries have everything to do with his back. So, I think the Brewers will be fine as far as making the playoffs. After that, I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll let George round out the topic, and I have something I want to say as well about the Brewers and their trade deadline, and I'll get that up. I'll say that after George is done.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I mean, one of the things that Eric pointed out, which I really, really was going to mention, so he stole a little of my thunder, but that's okay. It's been 5 years between All-Star appearances for our friend. And, 2019 and now again, like Eric mentioned, he made the All-Star team in 2024. But that is just one of the small indications. If you look at some of his, when I was studying up on him a little bit, I found out that like the big years he had, okay, Silver Slugger, 3-time Silver Slugger, last time, 2019. Hank Aaron Award, 2019. Batting Champion, 2019. 30-30 Club. I mean, you just go down the list. And all I'm trying to say is that, unfortunately, like we talked earlier about Mike Trout, we're finding out that some of these great veteran players, and I'll put I'll put Yelich in that same circle, are getting injured more and injury prone. And I know he's only 32 years old, but Milwaukee needs some time to be healthy and time to try to make a push in the postseason. And I know they've been really, really chomping at the bit to get back to the World Series, but I am concerned about him as an observer from the outside, if you will. A lot of his best years were in the past tense. His career highlights, that awards that he won, those kinds of things, are years and years past. Don't ever want to say no, that he can't come back, but I guess I'm more skeptical than I'm optimistic, in the sense that these injuries again and different things that have come up as far as his hitting ability is just not the same as it was back in the day when he was just tearing things up, first with Miami and the Marlins and then with the Brewers when they obtained him in 2018. Can he still do something good for them? Of course. But the thing is to maintain health, be healthy, and obviously be able to contribute as they try to push the Brewers, that is, try to push towards the playoffs.
Okay, I've got something I want to say right now. Candy and I attempted to get a pass for last Tuesday night with the Brewers and the Atlanta Braves. So I sent one of their communications guy a request, and I thought for sure on Sunday we were going to get it. And I wanted to talk to Pat Murphy, which the manager who has ties with Florida Atlantic University in their Hall of Fame. And what I found interesting about this communications department, unlike past communication departments that I've dealt with, this group here, and I won't mention a specific name, but this guy is the biggest clown I've ever seen. One of his excuses for not allowing us to come on Tuesday night is that there would be a lot of trade deadline talk. Well, guess what? The only trade that was made during that period was Frankie Montes. The Brewers did not make one single move the day up. And, why am I bringing this up? One of the things, and I'm going to talk about in Lessons from the Microphone, part 2, will be the access or lack thereof, and when I deal with some individual clubs. For many years, the Brewers got favorable publicity. This time around, they won't. Okay. So, this isn't anything that I really am looking to vent on a live stream. Okay. But the reality is, when you deal with certain PR people, okay, that, to me are there to help you, and they lay an egg like this one did, go shit. I'm surprised. I really wonder how much Pat Murphy had to say about the trade deadline, okay, since only one trade was made. That was it. Here's a team that, and I will say one other thing. I've met Christian Yelich before, okay? And Christian Yelich is one of the most down-to-earth superstars that I have ever seen in my life. And I am pulling for this guy 100% to do well. You talk about a guy here who actually doesn't mind playing in a small market. Certainly wish him speedy recovery. But let's not get too caught up in Milwaukee about the trade deadline that was or wasn't to be. All right, Katie, did you want to interject something?
Yes, I did. Because none of us have mentioned the fact that remind everybody, last year we had a manager in the name of Craig Counsell, and everybody thought the world of him. And we now have a new manager, Pat Murphy. How many first-time managers take teams to playoffs and World Series and all that. I don't think a lot of us gave Pat Murphy a lot of credit and thought that the Brewers would do very well this year, but look at what they're doing. So I was pleasantly surprised. Yes, in July they haven't been as on point, but I've been pleasantly surprised where the Brewers are now, given the fact that a lot of people wrote them off once Craig Counsell went down to Chicago.
Yeah, and I'll say one thing about Pat Murphy. At some point or another, I'm gonna have a chance to talk to this guy because he did some unbelievable things at Florida Atlantic University. So while it didn't occur on the last trip, I have every intention of getting hold of Pat Murphy when the time comes. I don't know, but I'll keep you posted. But FAU is one of the best college programs, baseball programs in the country. I just wish they had a much better stadium. But Pat Murphy is in the FAU Athletic Hall of Fame. So, but I've dealt with a lot of PR places before. And up until this point, it's been good. But the Brewers, unfortunately, I was very disappointed in the way the outcome was before. All right, Eric, what do you have to say?
Well, it was what I told you the other day at dinner. Call it the COVID-19 power trip by these PR people.
Right. That's true. That's true. And a lot of this is being felt around. So at a time where I'm thankful I'm on the back end of my career, because there is a lot of that power trip around a lot of people as well. So any closing thoughts with you, Eric?
I think in terms of the Brewers, a bit of a disappointment in my opinion, but we'll see what happens there. The Yankees, I mean, could have gone either way. Could have added more. Could have stayed pat. You could have gone either way. But other than that, though, I was okay with what they did. I mean, granted, Yankee fans are going to find a reason to poke holes at Brian Cashman. That's just what they resort to, and that's just what they do. But other than that, I don't think it was too bad. They got the bat they needed, and he's proven to be an all right third baseman, despite never having played the position before.
George?
Well, I was very honored to be part of the Jim Leyland retirement jersey ceremony Sunday, and I wanted to thank the Detroit Tigers for the job they did. It was first class all the way for Jim, his family, and all his friends, and obviously many of his players that played with him or against him that showed up. So hats off to you, Jim. Your number 10 is right there next to Sparky's number 11 on the brick wall at Comerica Park, and you did a great job. And a special thank you, Maglio, for coming back. Good to see Miggy there. Not Maglio, I'm sorry, Miggy. And it was good to see him there as well. So his first trip back to Comerica since he retired last season. So good job, Tigers, and awesome career, Jim Leyland.
Okay, Ashton?
I just appreciate being included in this group of individuals, able to speak my mind on baseball, and looking forward to being on here more often.
Oh, we enjoy having you. I talk about some of my best additions to the network, Ashton. There's no question you are definitely right at the top of that list. And every opportunity we have to put you on, to me, we're all better because of you. No doubt about it. I also want to tell you while you're on, I want to say thank you for all your help on social media as well.
Sure.
You don't think much of it, you do it, and I can't thank you enough. But any opportunity we get to have you on, to me, I'm just really thankful and that you're part of my team. Candy, any closing thoughts about tonight's show?
About tonight's show or
whatever?
All I'm going to say is if you haven't watched some of the Olympics, go watch some of the Olympics, because there's been some really great stories that have come out of that. And I know that's not necessarily baseball related, but that's what's happening right now. And it only happens once every 4 years. Congratulations to Simone Biles, like getting as many gold medals as she has. Katie Ledecky, and all the medals that she's got. Go enjoy, watch some of the Olympics. And that's all I'm going to say. Thanks for having me tonight.
You're welcome. Well, we enjoy having you as well. But I like finding new talent, and I enjoy the talent that I have within the group, and I'm continuing to look for a lot of people as well to fill in the slots we have. Have a very busy fall ahead of us. Summer has been very busy, and can't wait to see what happens as I start working on my book later. The only closing out thought I have tonight is if you're on Facebook, feel free to like the Motor City Mad Mouth page. I just started that page recently. So please like the Motor City Mad Mouth page if you see it out there. Part of the thing I'm trying to do is just grow my brand a little bit more. And again, I'm going to continue to bring more and more people on this show and others as well. And what can I say? Thanks isn't big enough. All right. With that said, Eric, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
You can follow me on my Twitter at Sports Team News, or you can read my blog at bellyupsports.com, where I cover all things baseball.
Very good. Okay, Ashton.
Just search my name, Ashton Nix, on any social media platform. You can also follow us at Peak One Sports, and we got all kinds of podcasts and live shows most days of the week.
Very good. All right, George.
You can find me at the South Florida Tribune website, where I write under the Motor City Tribune banner. My column there's a link at the end of my column to link to my book on Amazon.com if you want to read it or get a copy of it. It's Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. Scott's in it, I'm in it, and a whole bunch of other famous people, sportscaster wise. So, and you can reach me at Yahoo at gicorn@yahoo.com. And on LinkedIn at Sanji Sports 99. Find me here on the network, 108 Stitches and Sports Exchange and Fire Up. It's just been a great ride and continued great success for Scott and Candy and everybody that's part of this show.
All right, good. I appreciate the kind of words D. Lowe's. Eric is a natural at his craft. He loves doing baseball, and that's a sport he's really comfortable with. Smoke and Jeremy B. appreciate the comment. Baseball isn't your strong suit, which is why you're not on here. Nothing wrong with that. You do an exceptional job with football, and you're starting to get more and more comfortable with other sports. And, again, Smoke and Jeremy, he tries really hard. That's all I can say. But Eric is an excellent commentator when it comes to baseball. All right, Candy, go ahead and take us home. Or is there anybody that I've forgotten?
No, but I'm going to say Tuesday nights, if you like to listen to women talking about sports, we have an all-girls podcast broadcast on YouTube. It's Chicks and Salsa, or Three Chicks in a Pod. We talk all kinds of sports. We talk a lot of things, women in sports, and just come check us out. Tuesday nights, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. But I'm also part of the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. And Monday nights for this on Fire Up Florida, they talked hockey, then we talked baseball. Tuesday nights, we talked football. Wednesday nights and Thursday nights, Sports Exchange and Fire Up. You never know what we're going to be talking about. Typically Wednesday nights, Scott also has a one-on-one show, the Motor City Mad Mouth Show on nofilter.net. Go check that out. He interviews one-on-one people. You never know who he's going to have on. He's had ex-NFL players. He's had on broadcasters. Go check it out. nofilter.net. You can also listen to all of our broadcasts if you like to listen to podcasts wherever you get your podcast. Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Deezer, all of those places. If you see a red subscribe button, please hit that red subscribe button. Share us, like us, tell all your friends about it. Plus, also go to all the people that support our network and that show up on our network. Go to their sites, go to their YouTube channels, and support them as well. Go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com, where you can find the writings of Scott and George and pictures that I've taken. We also have an online store that has South Florida Tribune merchandise. It also has a link to Scott's book. Let's see what else. Oh, if you'd like to advertise or sponsor a show, call Scott 954-304-4941. If you have missed any of this, or if I talk too fast, it's been scrolling around the bottom, or just hit rewind and go back and read. Our Twitter is @TribuneSouth. Again, our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. And then, of course, the book that Scott wrote, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. Scott, the Motor City Madmouth Morganroth, wrote this book, and George wrote the foreword. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kindle, Apple and Google Books. Get your copy today. It talks about how the media has changed in Scott's 40-plus years in the business. He has a picture of him and young Muhammad Ali. Go get the book so you can check it out. Back to you, Scott.
Okay, Jeremy, good point. Saw 5 guys in here talking at one point, and I'm the first like. We must do better, love the chat and the banner, but likes help these shows grow. Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate that. Also, I want to point out one other thing too about Motor City Madmouth Show. It will expand to 2 shows a week, once on this platform and once on No Filter as well. That'll be an update that I'm working on, and I'm working on a lot of different nicks and crannies as well to make the network better. One guy that you'll probably hear a little bit more of is Trent Clark, the former, and he's actually going to be on this show pretty soon, just so everybody on this panel knows. He's a former strength and conditioning coach with the Detroit Tigers. He's going to have an opportunity to come on here once in a while and be on this crew to show a different perspective as well about the inner workings of baseball. And I'm trying to find those types of guests to more or less go ahead and provide a different aspect of the show. And he'll get grilled on some of the topics that everybody experiences with. So I think one of the things I love about what we're doing is the ability to get creative with the platform and make sure there's so many different ways that you can see sports and human interest stories to their highest level. I'll leave on this note, everybody that has a book or is going to get it, Marshall McLuhan once said, and George and I both know it all too well, the medium is the message. Our goal is to make sure that our medium and our platform is a message, as long as we work hard to make it exactly that and then some. So great show tonight. Enjoyed the banner in the chat room as well. And on behalf of Candy Ebling, George Eichhorn, Eric Katz, Ashton Nix, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. And we will see you next Monday night. Good night, everybody. And thanks for joining us.